Hey, so last week I said I would talk a little bit about hand position and how that feeds into the kinds of things I do with my style. So this is my style. So there's not that it's the right way to do it, it's that it's a good way to do it, and I hope when I'm done kind of demonstrating what I'm talking about, you guys will see that I think it is a better way to do it than many. So what we talked about, though, is that there's a couple of different ways to hold your sword. Palm down, palm up, or palm sideways, with the keons going that way. The keons, like that, is sort of the standard modern épée guard. Your hand is here, and your parries are then rotating the wrist. Get the parries. The wrist rotates to get those. That's okay, especially with an épée, which is very light, very quick, and does not actually have keons, so that it doesn't sort of give away what's going on. I fight palm down. So that means that my parries are simply breaking the wrist that way. You can see that when I'm doing most of my parries, there's no wrist action, no wrist rotation involved. You do the same thing, palm up. You get your parries that way with no wrist rotation. So what that means is that if I'm in my standard guard and I attack the way that I think you should attack, which is keeping some sort of defense rather than a straight extension, it's very easy because my wrist just moves. My wrist just moves. From here, if I want to go that way, I have to do a whole wrist rotation one way or the other to get it. It's a little easier to that side. You don't have to do the wrist rotation. But palm down, that's all it is from both sides. I can make the parry and come in. And that's why when I'm also talking all the time about the quick disengages, or the cavationes as they are referred to in some of the texts, I can just flip the tip around your blade and step in. And my hand is loosely gripping, and that finger can actually slide a little bit as I go to one side or the other. It doesn't have to, but it can when I make that move to that side. That's really all I'm talking about. I tend to fight this way. One of the advantages to doing this as well is that you've got that easy high extension and an easy low extension. You can change your levels very easily. From here, that's very awkward. Once again, you're having to rotate your hand one way or the other to get that high guard. Same thing with low. Low's pretty easy with your palm out, right? But you can just see that trying to get up high puts a very strange twist in the wrist, whereas this is easy. So I tend to do it palm down, which means that the hilt naturally falls into place on my wrist because the weight of the sword is out there, and it just hangs there nicely. If you do it this way, you have to work a little bit harder, palm up. You have to work a little bit harder to keep the tip up because it wants to naturally drop. The side effect of that is that it tends to drift your tip up a little bit. I know some people who are very short, let's just put that, just very short, and they tend to fight palm up because when they're down low, that naturally falls into a higher guard position. So if you're very short or you fight from a very low stance, that may be one of the things to think about. That was what I wanted to talk about with that. What I want to talk about with this, and this, and this. Yeah, that's that's most of what I wanted to say. One other thing I was going to say is this, or this, tends to require a little bit more strength in the wrist than this, which means wrist exercises. There's a few which are recommended. I've seen actually a video about this over on the Gyllenhaal site lately. But the simplest one is get your sword or just any sort of long object. Get it somewhere around the point of rotation, and then just rotate. Slow and getting, you support the elbow, because the point of this is really just to get the wrist. And you want it slow because the point is not to go all, floppy. The point is to start to build up that strength. You can do it that way. If you've got the TheraBands, I do it with a TheraBand. Sorry about that. Do it with a TheraBand. Same idea though. You just get it around and then slowly over and slowly back, resisting the whole way in both ways to build up that strength. Might as well do it on both sides, even if you're not planning on doing a lot of fighting with your offhand, but you can do it with both hands. This is easy to do if you're sitting down. Just rest your elbow on your knee and do that. It pays off because it means that a lot of things are a lot quicker and tighter, and it's easier to do those attacks and remain guarded because you're not having to do rotations to get them.